everyone, it's Ellie here, and today we are working on the undershirt for my Hero Rey costume. This shirt can't really be seen in a lot of photos, but when you're watching the movie, you might notice it as she is fighting or moving around in this outfit. It's a very important part of the costume, even though you don't see it normally. So let's hop right in and get started. As always, the first thing we're going to be doing is cutting out our pattern pieces. I've already drafted this pattern and traced it onto some plain paper, so it is ready to go. As you can see, rather than tracing the pattern onto our fabric, I'm actually using straight pins and pinning it directly into my carpet. This way my fabric doesn't slip around. This jersey is really slippery, and since I'm cutting 2 layers of it, I want to make sure it all stays in the same place. Once all of our pieces are cut out, we can begin sewing them together. I am lining this entire project, including the 2 overlaps on the front of the shirt. So that means that everything is going to be made out of 2 layers. Right now I'm pinning together 2 of my front pieces. I'm going to be running a zigzag stitch along the front neckline as well as the arm side to finish these seams. I'm using a zigzag stitch because it's made to stretch, which is perfect when you're sewing a stretch material like this. If you were to use a straight stitch, it's more than likely that your stitches would break rather than stretching. Now we're going to be doing the exact same thing for our back piece. We have 2 layers of the same pattern, and I'm pinning around the neck and the arm side, and we'll be running a zigzag stitch along these edges. Now that we've finished off all of those seams, we can go through and cut off all the excess material. This way we don't have any sort of bulk in our edges. Once all our excess is cut off, we are able to turn the piece inside out. And now you can see that there is a nice clean edge along that neckline. I've already stitched and trimmed all of our other pieces, so now we can begin putting them together and making them look like Rey's shirt. The first thing I'm doing is working on the crisscross that goes along the front of Rey's shirt. I'm lining up our 2 front pieces and attaching them at the side seams. This material is both really silky and really clingy at the same time, so it's important to take your time while you're working on pinning it together so it doesn't cling or look odd. Once I have the sides pinned, I'm going to be checking to make sure that I have them pinned at about the same height. Unfortunately, my left side was a little bit lower than my right, so I'm going to go through and repin it. And once it's pinned where I like, I run a zigzag stitch over the edges. And now comes the tricky part, attaching our back piece to our front. I don't want this shirt to have any open seams at all, and I want to do as little hand stitching as possible. In order to have as few seams as possible, we have to be a little tricky with our construction. As you can see here, I'm opening up our back piece. Remember, it was 2 pieces that we stitched together. Each piece of the back piece is going on opposite sides of the front piece, if that makes any sense at all. So I'm basically making a sandwich of my front pieces with my back piece. I test to make sure that that works the way I think it will, and thankfully it does. So we are going to go ahead and pin this all together and then stitch it with a zigzag stitch. If you're trying out a new method or a new type of construction that you've never done before, I always suggest pinning it into place or using a basting stitch to pin it into place first and testing it to make sure it looks the way you want it to. Then you can go over it again with your regular stitch. But this way you have made sure it works before you have to go through and seam rip a regular stitch. Once everything is stitched together, we trim off our excess as usual, and now we can flip it inside out and hope that everything worked the way we wanted it to. And thankfully it did. So now we have a back piece and a front crisscross. And as you can see here, there are no open seams. That side seam is completely closed off, which I was very happy about because I wasn't sure if it was gonna work. Now that we have the side seams taken care of, we can move on to the shoulder seams. Like I said before, I want to do as little hand stitching as possible, so I'm trying to figure out a way to connect these using my machine. What I decided to do was to put the right sides together, and then rather than connecting all 4 layers, since we lined it, there are 2 layers for the front and 2 layers for the back. Instead of connecting all 4 in one stitch, I decided to pin very carefully and attach the fronts together and then the side seams and then the back, leaving a very itty bitty hole to flip it all inside out. Again, this was something I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but thankfully it did. It's very confusing and I don't know if I could do it again if I tried, but it worked and I'm very, very thankful for that. All we have to do is do a quick little blind stitch to close up the rest of the hole. I've been trying to think of the best way to explain how I did this, and the best way to think about it is kind of like sewing in a circle, almost like you are sewing on a sleeve. So we pinned all the way around and then we sewed in a circle. It just looks really complicated because it's really small, but with the stretch of the material, it's not as bad as it looks, I promise. Once I finish the shoulder seams, I trim off the excess, flip them inside out, and blind stitch that little bit closed, and we are ready to see how the shirt looks on our dress form. I am very pleased with this look. I think it looks just like Rey's shirt, and if not, it looks like something she would wear for sure. I do think the V is a little bit deep for Rey, so I'm going to do just an itty bitty stitch up at the top to keep that together. I'm also going to go through and square up the hem since it got a little wibbly wobbly throughout all our sewing. I am going to be leaving this hem raw. Since it's jersey, it's not really going to fray at all, and I want to create kind of a layered look. So I'm going to square up the bottom layer, and then I'm going to trim off a little bit more of the top layer so it looks like there's lots of layering. How many times can I say layer in one sentence? Who knows? But so it looks like there's lots of dimension to this shirt, especially with the front. Since there are 4 layers there, I'm going to be trimming each of them individually to make them each just a little bit shorter than the last one. Even though with Rey's tunic you won't really be able to see this detail, I still want it to look really nice, since I might even wear this shirt for normal everyday wear since I really like the look of it. And we're going to finish off by closing up that V at the top of the shirt. This is just an itty bitty stitch going through all of the layers of the shirt, and I'm trying to keep my stitches as close together as possible so you can't really see them. And with that, our Rey shirt is all finished. And with that, we have finished our shirt for Rey. I'm really proud of this shirt, and to be honest, I'm probably gonna wear it all the time now. It's just extremely comfortable. I love that we layered the entire project. It doesn't feel heavy at all, but it does feel very put together and like it's not gonna fall apart at any moment. I also really love this layered hem at the bottom. It definitely looks like something Rey would have made on Jakku, or could have found in the Millennium Falcon and she cut up the hem or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but that's kind of my feel. That's what I'm going for. We're going to be working on the tunic next. I'm really excited for the tunic since I think it's kind of what ties this project all together. And then after that, we'll be finishing up the costume. So I hope you will join me then, and I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope you figured out how to make your Rey shirt, or maybe something similar. Please let me know in the comments if you were able to make something using my hints and tips and tricks. And as always, I really do appreciate each and every one of you. It means the world for me to see you guys watching my videos and when you subscribe or like. So thank you so much. As always, keep sewing, stay positive, have fun, and I will see you next week. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll see you later.